The Secrets of Star Trek is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek episode 169.
Captain to bridge.
Spock here.
Make it so. Surrender is not an option.
Attention crew of the Enterprise, this is James Kirk.
We are all explorers, driven to know what's over the horizon, what's beyond our own shores.
We would have helped you get home if you had asked. That's who Starfleet is.
Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the latest episode of Star Trek Lower Decks called We'll Always Have Tom Paris. And joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Aiken. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Father Cory Stika. Hi, Father Cory.
How's it going?
Very well, thanks. Folks, stick around to the end. We're going to have your listener feedback on our recent episodes and some other stuff as from listeners who've sent in some messages. So stick around for that at the end. Also, be sure to join the StarQuest fan club by texting StarQuest to 66866. That's StarQuest to 66866. And finally, I want to recommend another show that you'll enjoy on the StarQuest network called The Secrets of Technology. And we approach the topic of technology news, but also on ways you can use your technology from a distinctly Catholic perspective. So check it out wherever you find fine podcasts or at sqpn.com/technology. But today we're talking about Lower Decks' third episode of the season called We'll Always Have Tom Paris, and I'm very grateful for that. Jimmy, could you give us a quick recap of the episode?
Boimler is having trouble settling back into life aboard the Cerritos because while he was gone, the security was beefed up and now the system doesn't recognize him. As a result, navigating through the ship is a Sisyphean ordeal for him because the computer won't obey him and do things like open doors. But Boimler is desperate to get to the bridge because that's where Tom Paris is visiting from Voyager, and Boimler wants him to sign a commemorative Voyager plate that he has. Ultimately, he gets there, but he is so disheveled by the ordeal of getting there that Tom Paris thinks he's a Kazon and beats him up. Meanwhile, it turns out that, like Earth cats, Caitians go into Ponfar, and Dr. T'Ana assigns Tendi to go get a family heirloom she needs. Tendi takes Mariner along to make it a girls' road trip, and they discover they actually don't know each other as well as they thought, though they end up bonding in the end. They also break the ritual Totem Pole that Dr. T'Ana sent them after, but that ends up being okay because, also like Earth cats, Dr. T'Ana doesn't care what was in the box. She just wants to chill out in the box itself. Finally, Shax is Bax, and Rutherford becomes obsessed with how he and other bridge officers frequently come back from the dead. Ultimately, Shax tells him the answer, which we hear part of. It involves dark secrets of depraved science and is so terrifyingly disturbing that Rutherford won't even tell his fellow lower deckers because it's a sanity-breaking secret ordinary people must not know for their own good. The end.
The end. You're going to call this Earth Cats Are Crazy, but it's remember the movie Earth Girls Are Crazy?
Yeah, with Judy Tenuta.
Yeah. So,
speaking of movies, that's what this episode's title is a reference to. Casablanca, in the Rick character played by Humphrey Bogart and the other character played by Ingrid Bergman met in Paris and had a romance there, and now that they're meeting again in Algeria, is it in North Africa? They have to decide, are they going to stick together or is she going to stick with her husband? And she ends up sticking with her husband, but the line is, we'll always have Paris.
Spoilers for a 70-year-old movie.
Yeah, right.
70, yeah.
So the other reference is to a first season TNG episode called We'll Always Have Paris, which was a reference to the Casablanca movie. But it has nothing to do with whatever happens here.
And so, Boimler wanted, guys play sign. Well, you too can get a Tom Paris plate.
Yes.
They're actually doing a limited firing of a Tom Paris commemorative plate through Star Trek Unlimited. You can buy it for $30. You can get one. Although I think if you get it signed, as Jimmy pointed out, you got to go through massive amounts of trouble to get there.
I wanted a signed plate.
Barge your way through the convention to Duncan McNeil. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is a fun thing. I'll put a link.
Then let him beat you up as a Kazon.
Yes.
Yep,
Then he'll
exactly.
sign it. Thomas Duncan O'Neill? No, not Thomas.
Robert
Duncan
O'Neill.
Right. And that's the great thing is he voices the character in this episode, and so it's great to have original from the older series characters come back.
Well, now one thing that's kind of funny is even though Voyager itself is 20 years old, this is set only 3 years after Voyager's return from Earth.
To Earth, yeah.
Yeah, returned to Earth. Yeah, because 2378 is when Voyager returned, and then this is set in 2381.
Right. That's true.
And he's still just a lieutenant.
Yes. So Tom Paris is described in this episode variously as the creator of Fairhaven, Captain Proton, the first human to break the transwarp barrier, and of course Mariner says, "Is he still a salamander?"
Yeah. Worst episode ever.
Yes,
Yep.
that is a great reference to a terrible episode. Boimler is a Voyager fanboy and calls it Voy, just like all the Trek fans do. I love when they kind of break that fourth wall a little bit and do that.
So we've got Voy and last episode the D.
The D.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're starting to get these nicknames.
Right.
Well,
right.
I kind of laugh because, of course, Voy comes from the 3-letter code that everybody refers, Star Trek Voy. Except Lower Decks breaks that.
Yep.
Every other series is referred to by a 3-letter code except Lower Decks.
LD. What is Prodigy going to be? That's going to...
STP.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, right. And Strange New Worlds will be SNW, obviously. Just that's clear. That is funny. Yeah, it does break the convention. The other thing is that Boimler has commemorative plates from all the other Voyager bridge officers, from Captain Janeway all the way down to Kim. I love the fact that he says down to Kim. I mean, he's the most junior of the officers, but still, it's kind of funny.
And he's got them all signed except for the Tom Paris one.
Right.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a lot of fun, and we see a lot of this. There's a kind of who am I aspect, like where do I fit in the world that Boimler brings up, because he couldn't make it on the Titan, and now even his own ship, which he thinks of Cerritos as his own ship, won't recognize him. So where do I fit in the world?
Yeah, and this is manufactured drama. It's like, dude, just go to tech support and have them relog you into the system. You just need a password reset.
Yes, yeah. In fact, they tell him right in front to do it.
Yeah, if the computer will let him actually, log the ticket with tech support in the first place.
Right, that's true. So now I want to talk a little bit about the Shax thing, because we speculated, well, what happens to the actor who voiced Shax? He's still in the credits, so why do they keep putting him in the credits? Well, that's because they were never going to get rid of Shax. I'm not sure where that puts him vis-a-vis Kayshawn, who was the new security chief.
Yeah, on Memory Alpha, they in summarizing this episode, they said it has not been established what position he's doing now, but he's been seen working in engineering.
Okay.
So maybe he'll be an engineer now.
Okay.
And one thing I like is they completely just point right at the finger of, the idea of you don't find a body, they're not dead.
Right.
They just flat out, they just lay it right out there in front of you. Yeah, you didn't find a body. He was dead, but he's not dead anymore.
Well, even when you do find a body, and they kind of point to all the ways that bridge crew have come back from the dead. The Katra reunited, the Nexus time ribbon, which aren't those the same thing? The Genesis device, which actually is the same with the Katra thing, reconstructed by the Borg. Sun from the future?
Alternate sun from a future timeline. That's Alexander did that.
Oh,
yep.
Right. Okay, that's right. I forgot all about that. Yeah, that is.
And then you got Mirror Universe Switcheroo.
That's right.
Giorgio.
Yes, that is funny. I do like. Yeah, they really poked at this whole trope that Star Trek really relies on to create drama by killing characters, but not really.
It's also getting a little close to John Scalzi's novel Red Shirts. which is, for people who may not be aware, it's a really interesting novel. It has some non-family friendly stuff in it, but it is basically a parody of Star Trek that takes the fact that the bridge crew lead charmed lives seriously, and the red shirts, or the lower deckers in other words, are the ones who can die, but not the bridge crew. And the universe conspires to keep the bridge crew alive, but not the red shirts. And eventually the red shirts notice this and realize they are under threat and need to take action to deal with this situation because they're dropping like flies.
Yeah. And then the book takes a turn that is really unexpected.
Several, yes. Yeah. And there's a surprisingly accurate theological analysis in one of the appendices to the about the nature of identity and what's happening and so forth in the novel. But it is interesting to see this played differently. It's played for comedy in both cases, in a sense, but more for drama there, where the universe just conspires to keep bridge crew alive. Here, it's at least implied that in order to come back to life, the bridge crew have this horrific ordeal they have to go through. Because when Shax starts to tell Rutherford, I mean, initially they've warned Rutherford off because he's just on the verge of asking Shax how he came back when someone else does and is immediately like demoted. And eventually Rutherford summons up the courage to do it in a turbo lift, and no one can hear, so Shax stops the turbo lift and says, well, okay, I assume you know about the Black Mountain, right? And he's like, no. Well, in the afterlife, you go to the Black Mountain, and then you have to battle 3 faceless versions of your father, and whichever one survives forces you to eat your heart. And that's all we hear.
And Rutherford's eyes are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
There is at one point where Rutherford has this sort of hallucination of all the different ways that Shax could have come back, and the mirror universe versions and all this sort of stuff. And at one point just at the very end of it, there's a quick line of, in the Nexus, it's always Christmas.
I remember that line. Yeah.
That's awesome.
The Nexus, Ron Moore, who was one of the authors of Star Trek Generations that introduced the Nexus, has been critical of it. He thought that the writing was too rushed because they were trying to do all good things at the same time that they were writing Generations. And so, or at least they were too close to each other. And so he thought the writing suffered. And I've always thought the Nexus from Generations is underwhelming. I mean, they talk about it in Generations as if it's this, I expected fields of light and bliss, and and I liked my brother's summary of it. So there's this holodeck flying through space, and this guy wants to get into it more than anything.
He should have got together with Spock's brother because they seem to be of a pair. So, what was the other thing I was? Oh, they did miss a few ways that people have come back. Coming back as an android is one that is kind of recent. And then what was the other one I was thinking? That
might have been a little close to home.
Yeah, exactly. Being reanimated on a shore leave planet is another one that they missed, which we talked about recently.
Don't forget the ever popular time loop.
Right, a time loop, yes, which might be the we'll always have Paris thing, but that is true. So so that's the Shax thing. Shax is back, and I think now that we've put a pin in that.
No, you have to say it right. Shax is back.
Shax is back. I want a shirt now. There's got to be a shirt out there. Shax is back. And he's still calling Rutherford Little Bear, which I think is adorable and funny.
That was great. Yeah.
Nice callback. So let's talk about Tendi and Mariner and their mission. This is their first mission alone together, and they end up realizing how little they actually know about each other, because in the past, it's always been Boimler and Mariner going off, and Rutherford and Tendi going off, and I think it's the writers kind of poking a little bit at the romantic tension that they've been building up between these pairs, and kind of saying, look, it doesn't always have to be about pairing off and having romantic tension on missions. Maybe we could just have these two women go off and pair up and do a mission.
Although Tendi kind of pokes at that, Mariner says, "Well, I thought you and Rutherford were a pair," and she goes, "Not yet."
We're not yet. Yeah, that is kind of funny. Yeah. Whereas Mariner is very like, no, Boimler, no, ew, he's like a pet.
Yeah.
So in denial. So I do like that they kind of really. That's one of the things I think Lower Decks does well is they go at these things straight on, like the sorts of things that fans will bring up, and they just go straight at it. Okay, we'll do it, and we'll do it fun and amusing.
I liked how they initially build resentment between the two of them as they realize they don't know each other as well as they assumed. Like Mariner reveals that she was on Deep Space Nine, serving on Deep Space Nine at the same time Worf was, and we've never seen that, and they haven't mentioned it before, and so Tendi is very surprised and it's like, I didn't know you were on DS9. I thought the Cerritos was your first ship, and she's like, no, it's like my fifth. This is kind of an important thing about me. I talk about it all the time, which she does, but just not in front of Tendi.
Mariner did mention once last season, there was a flashback to being on DS9 where a creature ate a fellow crew member. I think it was. Yeah, something like that.
The also, so there's a great bit where Tendi is referring to people's misimpressions of Orions, thinking they're all thieves and pirates, and and then realizes, oh wait, because they've broken the ritual object and they need to get it repaired. And it's like, wait, my cousin works in a thieves' den in a pirate's hideout. We could go get him to fix it. And so while they're there, he refers to her as Mistress of the Winter Constellations, which is a great name. And apparently this is something she was called when she was young. And then he later refers to her as Divana, and Mariner is like, what, is this some other weird title you have? And she's like, no, it's my first name, Divana Tendi. You didn't know that?
Right. I do like that. This is the first time we've kind of really delved into Tendi's Orion background, which has this stereotype that is about Orions being like either Orion slave girls. They don't really talk about the slave girl thing, but they talk about, I'm not that kind of Orion who has the pheromone thing going on. She mentions,
or who uses them anyway.
Yeah.
They've briefly mentioned it before that people always assume that my people are thieves and pirates, and some of them aren't.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I do like, we're not just thieves and pirates. That's a stereotype. Oh, that reminds me. I have a cousin who's a pirate in the thieves' den. I just love that.
They did that one of the first episodes of last season where some of us haven't been for 5 years.
And so we have this tension between Mariner's laid back attitude versus Tendi's desire to get promoted. This is the conflict, and this is what gets them in trouble. So Tendi has to go to Quaylor 2. That's where the storage booth is for Dr. Ta'ana's scratching post.
And Quaylor 2 is a planet that was established back in Next Generation. It was this kind of seedy planet where Captain Picard ends up like contacting this underground in that two-parter. And I remember we had a bar scene on Quaylor 2 with the multi-armed woman who sucked salt.
Right.
And this time they visually modeled it off of that planet from Star Trek Picard, the casino planet.
Yes.
Whatever it is. And there's a Quark's bar there.
Yep.
So the Quark franchise has been expanding, which is
Vic
nice.
Fontaine's too, by the way.
Really? Oh, I didn't see that.
It was right across the street from Quark's.
And Mariner reveals you can get any drink you want as a slushie on this planet. So she says we're going to have to get like 5 different slushies just to try that out.
I think all drinks should be available as slushies. That's my.
That sounds great.
And we also find a little more about Tendi. She's into Klingon acid punk and has a conversation about Klingon acid punk with the storage unit guy,
who's a Cation also.
Yeah, and just like, oh, I love that one. They sing over the wails of the Dishonored, and I saw them live in concert. They had a real chorus of Dishonored Klingons wailing on stage.
and the title of that musical piece included the word Grethor, which is the place of the damned, from the Voyager episode Barge of the Damned.
That's right. That's right. Oh yeah, what do they call it? It's Grethor Core. That's what they call it. Acid punk. So because Mariner is Mariner, she wants to look at the whatever's in the box, and so they open up the box when they get it back to the shuttle, and they start messing with it and break it because, of course,
it looks like a raccoon totem pole.
Yes, and
it's a scratching post. Yeah,
it scratches an itch, and of course Mariner knows a guy who could fix it for them, so they have to go to Bonistel at Starbase Earhart, or Starbase Earhart at Bonistel, the planet Earhart. Thank you. Which is the place where young Ensign Picard was when he got stabbed through the heart by
Nausicaans.
By Nausicaans playing
Domjot.
Domjot. And of course, we have Tendi and Mariner end up playing Domjot against Nausicaans, because apparently that's all Nausicaans do all day long, is they hang around in bars and play Domjot.
They play Domjot and stab people.
Yes, and apparently they play it poorly. So they win,
or at least Mariner plays it well.
Yeah. But they win, and but they end up losing all of the money that they won by having to run away from them. Mariner throws the money, the latinum, into the Nausicaans' faces,
and the totem pole is smashed even further. And
right. Then
Tendi's freaking out even more.
Yeah, like that's going to be the thing. Progressively, this totem pole gets smashed more and more and more, and it's never going to get it back together. But the point is, it's not about the totem pole.
Yeah, and there are other things they could have done, like replicator.
Yeah,
you know,
right. I do like the fact that the whole Ta'ana wants the box thing. There was that was a good twist. Yeah. There was a recent episode of Let's Science that is also on the SQPN network, where they talked about this study that found that cats will sit in boxes that aren't real boxes but are optical illusions of boxes. So if you put pieces of paper on the ground that make it look like a box, they'll sit in it. I mean,
or masking tape, a little rectangle of masking tape. They'll treat it like a box. Right. And the reason cats do that is because it makes them feel safe. It makes them feel in control of their environment.
Right.
I have to laugh though when Dr. Tahana got on that box and her pupils open up and everything. It's just like, I laughed so hard. That was just so perfect. This tough as nails cat person, all of a sudden it's like just a little pussy cat sitting in the box, happy as could be. Yeah.
Anyone who's owned a cat recognizes all these behaviors, like, I'm not friendly. Oh, I'll be friendly for now. And I've gotten you this scratching post, and the cat climbs into the box that the scratching post came in. I mean, that's literally what's happening here. Is that experience? So whoever wrote this episode definitely owned a cat. That's what I'm saying.
I like so by the end of the episode, Mariner and Tendi have bonded and become friends, despite their disillusionment at not knowing each other as well as they thought. And at that point, Mariner contrives a plan to explain why the scratching post is broken that'll get Tendi off the hook. And so she rams the Cerritos' shields. And so that explains why the post is broken. And then she accepts responsibility, but says it was because a bee got in the shuttle and caused havoc.
Right. She should have said it was a space bee, just because everything is a space whatever. Yeah. The space bee got in it.
I love that with the shuttle, because they ramp it up like it's gonna be this big crash, and the shuttle just kind of bounces off the.
It reminded me of a moment in a movie, Tom Arnold movie called The Stupids, which is really, really funny. but it's about Stanley Stupid and his family. And there's a bit in the movie where the family has gone to a newspaper, and because they're the stupids, they don't understand what's happening around them, and they are trying to use the computer system in the newspaper office. And this is back in the day where you had physical discs that you would have to put into a drive, and they like feed oatmeal or something into one of the drives, and the computer says drive B fatal error. and then they're talking to Stanley, the father of the family, on the phone. He has just unwittingly come from a meeting with arms merchants. And he's driving in this car, and they call him, and they warn him that the computer system has told them about something called the drive B, and any error could be fatal. And then he's got the window rolled down, and a bee gets in the car, and he's like, "Oh no, the drive bee!" and he like gets out of the car and is running away, and one of the arms merchants shoots the car with like a bazooka, and it blows up, and that's the fatal error. So anytime I hear about bees, a bee got on the shuttle, I think about the drive B, and any error could be fatal.
Hilarious.
That sounds a lot like Steve Martin's The Jerk.
Yeah, the movie starts when Stanley Stupid cannot figure out the sinister conspiracy that is responsible for why his garbage keeps disappearing from the cans he puts it in.
How do people like that survive? So in the end, between Mariner and Tendi, Mariner admits that she keeps relationships shallow intentionally, because when she opens up and makes friends, they get promoted and leave her. That's a reference to Boimler in part. And Tendi admits that she's such a people pleaser that she never talks about herself, and so people don't get to know her. And that's also something we've seen. So they've kind of broken down those barriers. You mentioned how when Boimler finally gets to the bridge, he's so disheveled, so messed up from crawling through the Jeffries tubes that he looks like a Kazon, and Paris attacks him, which I think is great because, like, Paris, you're in the Alpha Quadrant. Where would a Kazon have come from? But
well, I love Boimler's proud. Like, no, there's only a few people in the Alpha Quadrant that have got a black eye from Tom Paris. He's all proud of it.
Only a few, apparently.
I like how they beefed up security because of the Pac-Leds.
Right. Yeah, because the Pac-Leds are such a danger.
Well, and I like, so the Pac-Leds were originally introduced in the episode The Samaritan Snare, which was a terrible episode.
Yeah.
But even then, they made the point, I believe it was Data who made the point, do not confuse their verbal simplicity for a lack of intelligence.
Right. That's true. So you mentioned Mariner takes responsibility for ramming the shuttle into the Cerritos' shields, so she ends up in the brig again. And I like the fact that going to the brig on the Cerritos is like getting grounded, and your friends can still come over and hang out with you. Like it's not really much of a punishment after all, but that is kind of funny that way.
Especially when they let you have your iPad and everything like that.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And you don't have to work. So. Any other notes about this episode, Father Cory?
Nothing here.
Jimmy?
Nope.
All right, so let's get to our feedback. Our first bit of feedback from our last episode, Case on His Eyes Open, our friend from SQPN, who's host of Secrets of Stargate, Jack Barazini, says, Dom, Jimmy, and Father Cory at microphones. Jimmy, his beard red. So
I'll need a little more clarity on the meaning, I think.
Yeah. An accurate description of the episode.
But got literary roots there. I mean, you've got the roots there. I just don't know the context.
Right.
Exactly.
And here's an email I got from John Scrivo, who sent it in. He says, I've really enjoyed this season of Lower Decks and the podcasts. The characters have a great chemistry, and it's refreshing to have some fun episodes instead of long story arcs with disappointing resolutions. Discovery. That's my editorial insertion. Boimler's defense of the D was a personal favorite moment. SQPN has been there for me a lot over the past month. My wife was diagnosed with preeclampsia and had to spend 4 weeks in a hospital an hour from our home. Needless to say, I managed to listen to a lot of podcasts traveling back and forth. Thanks be to God, my wife is fine and our son was born at 34 weeks. He's tiny but mighty and should be ready to come home within the week. I wanted our son's name to be Dominic after my great-grandfather. My wife said I wanted to name him after you. I don't see what's wrong with that. I'm an SQPN fanboy, but really, I just like the name. I do too. In the end, we named him Leonardo. Thanks again for all the great programming. It helped keep my spirits up and also kept me awake during the long car rides.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on your son, and glad that everything turned out well with your wife and everything, and glad we were able to give you some accompaniment as you're driving back and forth.
That's for sure.
And for listeners who may not be aware, preeclampsia is a condition that can develop during pregnancy.
Yes, that's right. And naming him Leonardo is lots of opportunities for dad jokes about Ninja Turtles. So let's just make that clear. That's a great pick.
Are the Ninja Turtles still a thing that young people are aware of?
Yes. They've come back again. Like they've rebooted it, I think.
Yeah, because I was there when the original Ninja Turtles were coming out as comic books.
Yeah.
And before they became big with a cartoon and everything.
Yeah, they keep rebooting them. Like,
well, they're a significant IP.
That's right.
Yep.
Got to make the money on the IP. But thank you, John, for that and for the amusement. My wife wouldn't let me name my son Dominic either, so I'm with you. So we do want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek, including Tim G, Ramses, David W, Thomas A, and Nick S. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. We'd love to hear from you what you think of We'll Always Have Tom Paris or anything else. You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek or our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia or send an email to trek@sqpn.com. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the next episode of Lower Decks. But until then, Father Cory Stika, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Star Trek.
Thank you, Dom.
And Jimmy Aiken, thank you as well.
Thank you, and live long and prosper.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, what was the deal with T'Pol's hair for that 1 year?